Are you all right?
No.
Hi, Ty. Nice to meet you. I didn't know it was supposed to be on cam, but that's very nice to see you in person.
Yeah,
I'm Mark from Horreur Québec. Thank you for having me. I know you've worked on some great series these past few years. I was just curious to know if X felt a bit like a comeback on your outer roots since The Sacrament almost a decade ago now.
A little bit. I mean, I had taken a break from making horror movies because I would made so many in a row. And I didn't want to repeat myself because it's a very long process to make a movie. And so to just go out and do the same thing you've already done is not particularly inspiring. And so I think I just needed some time away from it to think of something fresh to do. And I think ultimately what I was thinking about was like what I liked about horror movies to begin with and what I felt was missing from horror movies now. And suddenly I was like, oh, I have a little list in my head of things that are missing. And maybe I could make a movie and that it would have them in it. And maybe that's worth doing. And so I was happily just doing television shows and having a great time. And I got to work on some very cool TV shows with some cool people. And I had a horror movie idea nagging me. And it didn't go away. And so I wrote it, not thinking I would make it. I'll just write it and see what happens. And I wrote it and I sent it to A24. And I think if they had said no, I don't think I would have made the movie. So I only sent it to them. And I was like, let me know if you'd be up for this. Might be a little out there for you, but let's see. And they called me back and they were like, nope, we want to do it. And so that's kind of what happened. I mean, I guess I was aware that it's been 10 years, but I wasn't really thinking about it because I was doing so many things, you know?
Yeah. So it was just only for A24. You wouldn't have done it without any other.
I don't think so. I don't know that anyone else would have made it. Like, you know, with that particular kind of movie. And A24 is, I think, you know, the best studio out there and is the most like respectful of filmmakers and what this movie was, which was a really like craft centric kind of horror movie. And so I think if anyone else wanted to do it, I'm not sure they would have believed in it the way A24 did. Okay.
I don't know if you would agree, but I feel like porn and horror have always been like the kind of a black sheep of cinema. What made you want to unite them in a movie?
Yeah, I agree. They've always had this sort of weird symbiotic relationship of like, they're like outsider things. Yeah. And that was a big part of it. Like, cause I wanted to make a movie about people making a movie, but I didn't want to make a movie that like took place in the Hollywood system. That's not that interesting to me. I wanted it to be an independent movie, but I didn't want to make people making a horror movie because that wasn't that interesting to me. And then traditionally speaking, a slasher movie and this sort of like trope of sex and violence and this sort of very lowbrow exploitation thing, it was interesting to me to try to take something historically lowbrow and try to do something crafty with it. And to me, porn was a good way in because it's an independent way into the movie business, just like horror is. And also it's the kind of thing where what's on screen in porn, which may come across erotic, is not that way when you're making it. So it's a great way to show an audience like how making a movie is different from what a movie is. In the same way that horror, people always ask, like, was it scary when you were making the movie? And it's like, if you make movies, you're like, no, of course not. You know, that's but if you don't know, like, how would you ever know that? And so the same way is like, would it be sexy making porn? No, it's the same. Like, it's a technical process that to make something like, what is the term? Like to make something appear a certain way on screen that isn't actually that. And I think that's a good way for the audience to think about movie making, which in turn makes them watch X thinking about the craft of filmmaking. And for me, that was what I was, trying to get after there.
You're always super inspired when it comes to depicting different eras. You've done it beautifully in House of the Devil and in A Valley of Violence. Do you consider yourself as a nostalgic movie lover?
I probably am, but I think it's more that I'm not that interested in modern movies because I think modern times for me, it's so focused on technology. And I don't really find screens that interesting in movies. And I don't really want to do a series of, I don't want to necessarily tell a story where people are using like phones and computers. I'm sure there's an idea I would have that would do that, but generally speaking, phones and TVs and computers are like not that cinematic to me.
True. I agree.
And it's very difficult to tell an interesting suspenseful story when everyone's connected.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make someone's like, I don't have service. Like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, it's been done quite a few times now. I feel it's also really difficult to talk about X without talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's so many references to the original one. I mean, it's only fair to assume that the movie might figure amongst your favorite and a big inspiration for this one.
In a way, yes. I mean, it's a brilliant film. It's a masterpiece. And I think it's probably like if not the greatest slasher movie ever made. That having been said, you know, if you're going to make a slasher movie, if you were to make it in Texas, that's going to be looming over you. If you were to make it at like a camp, well, Friday the 13th is going to loom over you. If you're going to, you know, and so just like making a horror movie in a hotel, you have The Shining looming over you. So my feeling was like, I don't think X is that much like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but there's no way that people aren't going to think about that by the nature of that movie already existing and being so great. So I might as well just embrace it. And I might as well make you go, all right, you think it's going to be like that. And there's things that remind you of that, but then the movie doesn't end up being that, is sort of the best way to get out of the shadow of that is how I looked at it. But there's very little in the movie that is like directly trying to reference it. There's a couple things here and there that just by the nature of the setting and what it is that you can't help not. And I leaned into that when I could, but you know, the actual story of the movie doesn't necessarily have that much to do with it. But like I was saying, like it's there. I like the idea that people think they know what X is going to be because they think Texas Chainsaw. And then at some point in the movie, you're like, oh, I was wrong about that. It's actually different.
Yeah, the mood is certainly there, but when it comes to the villains treatment is much more different in a sense that you wanted to humanize them instead of keeping them in the dark. It's clear you wanted to try something new within the slasher genre.
Yeah, I mean, that was the hope. I mean, in making something, I didn't want to be like, I mean, when you go out to make something like this, you hope to try to give everybody something new, you know, and I thought the setup for the quote unquote villains in this movie is not what you think it's going to be. And that it's a more, I guess, like there's a humanity in the villains, even though they're villains. It's sort of like, oh, but it's not like supernatural per se. It's like it's a human issue that's causing like the horror.
True. The movie also features like some of the nastiest gore scenes you ever filmed. All practical, by the way. I mean, the throat scene really caught me off guard. I guess it was the first one. I was, whoa. Yeah. Why did you want it to go so deep?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to make a slasher movie, like that's what people are coming to see. You got to deliver. And as far as the first one, you know, the movie is leading you in a lot of different directions and kind of making you think the movie's one thing and then something else. And when it finally turns into the movie that you know, originally thought you bought the ticket for, I wanted to deliver in a big way. So that way you're like, oh, okay, nothing's going to be the same from here on out in the movie. So I felt like the first death in the movie really needed to make a statement.
Sure. Any technical issues regarding some of the blood scenes?
Oh, it's such a hassle, you know, because when you're doing everything practical, it's like you need the blood to squirt here like this. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, you got to clean it all up and start over. And there's never enough time. So, you know, shooting all of this sort of practical death scenes is always, you know, not unlike Jaws. We had a practical alligator thing and it's like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. And so it's all worth it in the end. But while you're doing it, you know, you're standing waist deep in the water somewhere with a practical alligator puppeteered thing going, God, why did I do this? But in the end, it all worked out.
I feel that with X, you managed to talk about porn in a very fun way, but also with a lot of respect towards the profession. How much was it important in your writing process and also for the actresses that were going to play the parts?
You know, it was more about filmmaking than it was porn per se. I mean, that is what they're doing. Yeah. You know, we were all very sensitive and trying to be like considerate of that. But it was really just about, to me, like how what's on screen is so different than what it's like making that, you know, and that was a big part of, to me, is like you see them in the porn movie and it looks one way. And then when you cut to them making the porn movie, it's so silly. So I think with all the porn sequences, we were always trying to kind of like have a little bit of fun with it and kind of not take it so seriously. Because we never wanted the movie to be like sleazy or creepy or nihilistic. We always wanted it to be like, you know, like an upbeat, fun movie.
I also feel like you found the perfect casting for that. Everyone is so great in their parts. What did you see in Maya Gut that made you want her to be your main girl?
I have had followed her work. I think she's great. And then we met over Zoom, and she really got the movie, and she was really excited by the challenge of what it was going to be. And I was like, I believed her confidence. Like, I believed that she really wanted to do it and that she was up for that challenge. And so I think, like the character in the movie, I was just sort of charmed by that. Like, she was like, I could kill this. And I was like, I believe you.
I know time is up, but since I have you on the line, I wanted to know how you would describe yourself as a horror fan.
Oh, specifically as a horror fan, I don't know. I think, like, I love the craft of filmmaking. So anytime I can see something where I'm like, I don't know how they did that, or this was unexpected, or this was amazing that a bunch of human beings practically did something, whether it be, you know, someone getting killed in a movie, whether it being a shot that I don't know how they did, whether it being a stunt, whatever it may, anytime I see the craft of cinema, which in horror movies, because they can kind of be anything, there's a lot of opportunity for that. Anytime I see like really great cinematic craft, I'm excited. So that's what I always look for in horror movies. And, that's more prevalent in horror movies than, say, a romantic comedy. So part of my desire to like horror movies so much is because they're borderline an experimental film genre. You can get away with almost anything. So when people are bold and doing things that are unique to cinema, that's what I get excited about.
Thank you again so much. I'm very happy that I was able to talk to you today.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
See you later.
I see one goddamn fucked up horror picture.